The island of Aruba entered the 21st century with a reputation carefully built over decades. It was marketed as orderly, welcoming, and safe. Tourism was not simply an industry, it was the foundation of national stability. Every arriving flight, every hotel expansion, and every promotional campaign reinforced the same promise, that this was a place where visitors could relax without fear, and where crime rarely intruded on the postcard image. By the early 2000s, that promise had become an expectation. Aruba's economy depended on it. Local institutions understood that a single violent incident involving a tourist could ripple outward, affecting employment, international confidence, and diplomatic relationships. Safety was not just a matter of policing, it was an economic imperative. In May of 2005, the island was preparing for the start of another busy summer season. Cruise ships docked daily, resorts were full. Graduation trips from the United States had become a predictable fixture, bringing groups of newly graduated students eager for independence and celebration. It was within this context that the disappearance of Natalee Holloway occurred. Natalee Holloway was 18 years old, a recent high school graduate from Mountain Brook, Alabama. She arrived in Aruba on May 26, 2005, as part of a supervised senior class trip. The itinerary included group activities, curfews, and designated hotels. For most of the trip, the schedule unfolded as planned. On the night of May 30, the group attended a farewell celebration at a local nightclub. The evening was not unusual by resort standards. Music, alcohol, and crowded dance floors defined the final hours of the trip. Witnesses later described the atmosphere as chaotic but familiar, the kind of scene that repeated weekly during peak tourist months. Shortly after 1:00 a.m. on May 31, Natalee Holloway was seen leaving the nightclub with 3 local young men. Security cameras captured portions of the group outside the venue. Other witnesses recalled her entering a vehicle. By early morning, she had not returned to her hotel. At first, the absence was not treated as an emergency. Trip chaperones assumed she might have stayed with friends or overslept. When morning checkouts began and Natalee could not be located, concern escalated. Her luggage remained in her room, her passport was still inside. Local authorities were notified before noon. Aruban police initiated a preliminary search. Early efforts focused on the immediate area around the hotel and the route between the nightclub and nearby residences. The initial assumption, based on experience with intoxicated tourists, was that she might be disoriented or injured. By the afternoon, that assumption weakened. Witness statements placed Natalee Holloway leaving voluntarily, but there was no evidence she reached a destination. The 3 men last seen with her were identified and questioned. They described giving her a ride and dropping her off near her hotel. Their accounts were inconsistent in detail but aligned in conclusion. Within 24 hours, the case shifted from a missing tourist report to a full-scale disappearance investigation. Search teams expanded outward, beaches were combed, shallow waters were searched by divers, canine units were deployed around construction sites and abandoned structures. Volunteers joined police, moving methodically across the island's terrain. Media attention followed almost immediately. American news outlets picked up the story within days. The image of an 18-year-old student missing in a foreign country resonated with audiences. Her photograph appeared on national broadcasts. Aruba's name, once synonymous with leisure, became attached to uncertainty. As coverage intensified, pressure mounted on local authorities. The investigation was no longer internal. It was being watched. In the days that followed, the 3 men last seen with Natalee Holloway became central figures. They were detained for questioning, released, and then rearrested as new statements emerged. Each development was reported internationally, often before official statements were finalized. Investigators faced a familiar challenge amplified by extraordinary scrutiny. There was no crime scene. No physical evidence definitively linking the suspects to violence. No recovered body. Weeks passed. Search efforts continued, but momentum slowed. Leads multiplied without convergence. Tips arrived from across the world, many unverifiable. Witnesses contradicted one another, timelines blurred. By mid-June, the disappearance had transformed into a prolonged absence. Hope remained publicly expressed, but privately recalibrated. The case entered a phase defined less by active discovery and more by waiting. During this period, patterns began to emerge, not of what had happened, but of how institutions responded under pressure. Aruban authorities maintained that the investigation was ongoing. Statements emphasized cooperation with international agencies. However, limitations became visible. Resources were finite. The island's small police force was unaccustomed to sustained global attention. Meanwhile, legal standards constrained action. Without sufficient evidence, suspects could not be held indefinitely. Detentions were challenged and overturned. Each release reignited public frustration. In the United States, Natalee Holloway's family became advocates by necessity. Press conferences replaced private grieving. Legal counsel coordinated with foreign officials. Appeals were made directly to the public. The narrative shifted. What began as a missing person case evolved into a broader examination of jurisdiction, accountability, and the vulnerability of travelers abroad. Aruba's tourism infrastructure was scrutinized. Nightclub security practices were questioned. Transportation norms were debated. By the end of the summer, the investigation reached a rupture point. A series of new statements from one suspect suggested alternative scenarios. Locations were identified, searches were conducted. Each effort ended without confirmation. Each failure deepened uncertainty. Years passed, the case did not resolve. Periodic developments, interviews, recordings, legal actions kept the disappearance in public consciousness. None produced closure. Evidence remained circumstantial. Outcomes remained deferred. Institutions adapted. Tourism campaigns adjusted messaging. Law enforcement procedures were reviewed. The Holloway family continued to pursue answers through civil and criminal avenues. The absence of resolution became its own legacy. Natalee Holloway was never found. No definitive account of her final hours was established in court. The case remained open, not as an active investigation, but as an unresolved chapter. For Aruba, the disappearance marked a permanent shift. Safety was no longer assumed. For international travelers, it became a cautionary reference. For legal systems, it illustrated the limits of evidence and jurisdiction. The coastal town did not return to what it had been before. The name endured, not for beaches or resorts, but for a question left unanswered. The unease remains.